we're going to get right into it. It's like rock, paper, scissors, feature, process, or resource. And what we decided to do today was we're going to do two. We're going to start with a resource, and then we're going to move to a feature. And so here we go. I'm going to share my screen, and we are going to the Rejuvi website, which everyone knows is your point of login to the Rejuvi platform. And here we go. Let me use my password service here to get logged in. We're logging in as an administrator of a company called BlackRock Steel. I'm going to strike login, and there we go. We are welcome to the Rejuvi platform, and everyone remember that when you log into the Rejuvi platform, there are really worlds out here for help you build your leadership capacity for senior leaders, for sales leaders, which is red, for service leaders, which is purple, and for team leaders, which is blue. And Green World is coming for our expert leaders. Rejuvi will have that up at the tail end of 2023. So the other thing that, just as a reminder, when you log into the Rejuvi platform, this platform is about helping you to build your leadership capacity. And so you're always prompted when you first log in to say, what are you trying to do today to help build this capacity to serve your leadership bench? Are you trying to work with your leader population? Are you trying to do some data collection? Are you trying to do some reporting and analytics work? Or are you trying to do some training and development or research work, and therefore you need resources to go? And so we're going to start out with a resource called the Construct Working Board. So I'm just going to go to Resources to Go. And I'm going to go into a folder called Card Decks, right? It's resources. Card Decks are such great learning tools. They help you to create all kinds of practice. And within the Card Deck folder, you'll see something called the Construct Working Board. And I'm going to preview it here. By the way, I'm in the Rejuvi Team World, which is purple. And this is the Construct Working Board. And what you'll see here is, in a way, the way that Rejuvi thinks about its leadership analytics flywheel, but you'll also see some squares, and we refer to those as building blocks or constructs. Now, to tell the story of this Construct Working Board, we're going to actually open the PowerPoint file that's associated with this, so we can kind of tell a little bit of a story, right, that is associated with it. And here we go. We're in the same version, just in a movable version of the Construct Working Board. And so the first thing that I want to do is just to point out this little piece right here, because I think that this is an answer to the question called, if I am a business and I am, my business is just getting really turned on and really understanding how to use my people analytics. And I'm at that point, I'm looking at my leadership analytics, and I'm still saying, yeah, but how do we address this? What do we do? How do we start to address some of the answers to the question called, if we're looking at our rate of attrition, and it's not what we want it to be, then what are we going to actually do about it? It's pointing to some things called, let's start to think about your leadership capacity and how you might think about it. And so I think the first thing that we want to talk about today in the Construct Working Board is the leadership analytics space starts out with, in a way, a different business model. And so a way to start to think about our flywheel, in that if you want, let me make this kind of bigger for everyone to see, but if you want better analytics, better results that your people analytics are giving you, if you want more alignment on behalf of your people, if you want more engagement from your people, if you want to decrease some of your people analytics like turnover ratio, then you're talking about things that happen in this box right here. And you probably care about answers to that question, because if you don't serve those people analytics, if you don't serve your turnover rates, if you don't serve your alignment rates, if you don't serve your engagement rates, guess what that connects to? That connects to the health of your customer population, right? It's the satisfaction and the loyalty of your customers, the number of households that you have, the number, how much each household is actually consuming of your particular product or service. And if you don't have the satisfaction and loyalty that you want from your customers, guess what that's going to impact? It's going to impact the results that you want on behalf of your business. So for us, leadership analytics and how we wanted to open this leadership mix with this session called Control is all about this. It's one thing to think about your people analytics, right? But you're going to get to a place called, what do we do about the answers to our people analytics, right? Number one. And number two, how do we start to push off completely differently inside of the leadership development space? How do we push off at this 12 o'clock box with a modern way of thinking about compassionate human leadership in addition to fierce business leadership? It has to, control of that environment has to start with something brand new inside of the 12 o'clock box. It's a brand new leadership flywheel. It's a brand new pushing off point for your leadership analytics.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if I were to just kind of, build from what you've laid out there, the people analytics and the HR data, and I like how you've connected that to that, to that 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock box, right? That's the starting point in organizations. So organizations today, and it's really hot topic, people, organizations are investing a lot of resources and really taking the data, organizing it and structuring it, because they see the value of understanding that, so that you can actually drive that, you know, drive better business outcomes, right? But the thing that we're saying here is that we're saying it's not just enough to start and stop with people analytics. You have to start with leader analytics, and that's the 12 o'clock box. So the thing is, we can always get to the, what are my levels of engagement? What are my levels of retention? What are my levels of, et cetera, that's coming from the people analytics
Of
data?
like people productivity,
Right.
all those sorts
All
of
those
things.
things, right? So it's great to have that. We are understanding the what, but what we don't understand, unless we start pushing off from the 12 o'clock box in this model, is we don't understand the why or the how, right? And what I
That's
mean by that
exactly.
is, yeah, what I mean by that is, yeah, we know what the engagement rates are, but if we inherently believe that higher engagement rates drive higher business impact because it drives higher satisfaction and loyalty, I think not having leader analytics means that you don't know how to drive your engagement rates high in a
Right,
surgical manner, right? You
right.
don't understand exactly what do you need to be doing in the broader ecosystem leadership capacity and the capability that can very precisely and predictably and prescriptively drive your engagement scores. And that's just one metric. You
Mm-hmm.
can make the same argument for what drives your attrition or your retention, numbers inside the organization, or the productivity per employee, or your revenue per employee, right? There's so many metrics that kind of come out of that people analytics space. But what we're saying is, we're saying unless you push off, and that's the mindset shift, and that's the modern leadership approach, is unless you have the analytic flywheel at the leadership level, you don't really understand how to impact everything you're learning inside the
Mm-hmm.
people analytics space. I think that's the other piece too.
Yeah, I love that. And, and then I think in order for you to be more surgical, I'm going to take this kind of way to start to think about our business model for
Mhm.
the impact of modern leadership. that starts to push off this leadership flywheel um, for um, for leadership analytics. I'm going to make this really tiny and start to play with some of these constructs this morning, because you'll see at the 12 o'clock box, it says leader excellence and business excellence.
Right.
And we both want to talk about this because this starts to drive better control of your leadership analytics. And so, one of the things that we know is leader excellence isn't just made up of, for example, yeah, people related skills. Like, how does a leader coach his or her employees or give feedback? It's based on that. It's not just based on, for example, their ability to, for example, build, a strategy, or to think kind of strategically on behalf of whatever, they're leading on behalf of the company. We know that the building blocks that form leader excellence really start with our ability to understand. First of all, it's what we call C. Oh, excuse me, I
Yep.
forgot to turn that phone on. But leader excellence starts with what we call the possibilities that they see.
Yeah.
And the possibilities that they see might our kind of subtitle for that is their IQ, their ideation quotient, all of the things that start to give a leader some sense of personal direction for possibilities that might exist in whatever he or she is leading. And that connects to a second construct that Rejuvi calls know. And this is about the things that are giving the leader direction that start to come out of him or her and start to interplay and interact with the environment around him or her. It's their macro and their micro people skills. And it's how their macro and their micro people skills start to help that leader and that team to know, when's it go time, right?
Yep.
And our subtitle for no is EQ. And it's not about, it's bigger than emotional quotient, right? It's environment quotient, because there's a lot of things in the environment beyond macro and micro people skills that you need to pay attention to. And it finishes with this construct called do. And so what's happening is a leader is using his or her C capability, the ideation quotient, to give him or her direction. It begins to interplay with the world environment around him or her, the team. And that starts to give everybody direction. It's the AQ, their agility quotient. That's what we know in a building block construct sort of way starts to build our leadership capacity at the leader level, right?
Yep.
And I don't think that that's necessarily breaking news to the
Right.
leadership development space. We understand that there are these building blocks, and behind the building blocks are competencies and behaviors and actions that a leader might take to demonstrate this kind of excellence from the bottom to the top. But what goes in the 12 o'clock box is not only leader excellence. We also have to start thinking about, business excellence. And in order to do that, we need to, yes, guess what? We need to start thinking about what we call strategic intent, which is all those things like, where's the business going? Why is the business going there? And how do we define success and our ability to be successful en route? That's strategic intent, right? And I think that most companies would go, yeah, we get it. We get that that's a part of business excellence. And to date, most companies would say, not only do we understand that building block of business excellence, we understand this building block right here called implement, which means that, once an organization starts to carve out and communicate their strategic intent, you're going to start to talk about the short term. What are the things that you're going to need to do? The short-term things that you're going to do in order to activate that strategic intent, right?
Yep.
But here's the thing, people are looking at this and going, okay, now wait a minute, Vid and Raj, there's two other boxes there. And
Right.
what I would say is that modern leadership on behalf of business excellence has taught us that if those are the only two constructs that you're using in order to understand and work towards business excellence, you're going to get beat in the market.
Yeah.
You're going to get beat on the street. And we see it happening every day. And what we have to help from a business excellence perspective is that you don't jump from strategic intent to short-term implementation. We have to help our leaders to take the strategic intent and to say, okay, what is our role in that process? What do we see happening in the street each and every day? And what do we think the opportunities and threats are for us to start to do our work a little bit differently, to start even innovating about those opportunities and threats that we see? And that starts to inform this building block right here, which is called target. And it's that leader and his or her team or team's ability to say, yeah, we get our role. And yeah, and we've had this opportunity to talk through what we see happening on the streets. But now we're ready to take a look at new ways of working based on what those opportunities and threats that we see. And now for the first time, those new ways of working are going to start to inform your ability to implement.
Yeah.
So this is modern leadership. It is the combined, highly correlated world of leader excellence and business excellence. And it starts to form the basis of a leadership flywheel that will allow you to push off completely differently in this 12 o'clock box to get after the metrics that you really want inside of your people analytics world, right?
Yeah.
This is everything.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the body of work that we talk about incrementing. And your point about the whole modern leadership movement is to say that, listen, it's actually first it's a much different pushing off point. It's upstream to people analytics, right? Leader analytics, that
I
is.
love that upstream to people analytics.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So recognize that there's one more element to creating your flywheel, and it's a key element. So that's number
Mhm,
one. Number two is, even as you're creating that 12 o'clock box, it's not just based on what we used to know, which was leader and then strategy to intent. It's actually leader, strategy to intent, and then two other dimensions that you were just talking about, in the intelligence and the target,
that's
areas
right.
of the graphic.
Mhm,
So make it holistic.
mhm,
So it's not just at a different pushing off point upstream.
mhm,
It's also what's in that box needs to be more holistic. And guess
mhm,
what? If you do that, then
mhm.
it is not left to our imagination of the ability to take that capacity, capability, movement, and then tie it to business impact in
That's
very,
right.
very direct causal ways. And
That's
this
right.
is the piece that, by not doing the hard work of really understanding where the pushing off point is and how to create that flywheel and what to put in the box to create that momentum, is, I think, we've really created for ourselves in the leadership development, fraternity, a notion that somehow this is not measurable, or it should not be measured, and it's all intuitive. And I think gone are the days where it needs to be intuitive.
Mhm,
It can absolutely be measured, and not just measured in a very abstract average way. It can
mhm,
be measured in a very direct causal way and very surgically to specific things that you're trying to
mhm,
achieve inside the organization.
mhm. One of the words that you used was upstream, and I love that so much because, you know, it connects to our word for today's session, which is called control.
Right.
So if you were looking at your people analytics and you were really struggling with why are our turnover rates the way that they are? Why are our efficiency ratios the way that they are? Why are our market capture the rates that they really are? Some of these are these are some of the things that our people analytics are going to start to inform. You've got to go upstream.
Mhm.
And wouldn't you want to know, for example, if you were looking at this more holistic picture of what it really takes to push off with power in that 12 o'clock box, to be able to say, for each one of these 7 constructs, each one of these 7 building blocks, which think of them in a heat map, way,
Mhm.
which of these things are green, which ones are yellow, and which ones are actually red. Because it's the red ones that you're going to have to go to. If you find out, hey, we're perfectly okay on, strategic intent, and know and implement, but we're looking at this and we're finding red zone results kind of in target and in intelligence. You're going to want to have that answer, because that's going to help you to surgically know the kinds of things that you're going to have to do from a leadership development perspective in order to get this flywheel going called, okay, that's going to impact the people analytics, which is going to impact the customer results, which is going to impact the business results that we have.
Yep.
I love this conversation so much. I could talk about it over and over and over and over again. But that's the first tool that it was the first resource that we wanted to start out with in this session called Control. And, it's just like, it's kind of a weird place to start, because today this whole mix is about leadership analytics. But the whole point is, and you have to start out with this different perspective, this different mindset on all of the things that are upstream to excellent people analytics. Because if you don't think about that in a holistic way, you're going to continue to spin. So that's the
Correct.
first tool that we really wanted. And the second thing that we wanted to do was we wanted to I'm going to go back to the platform, and we're in the Rejuvi team world, and I think that's great, right? So
Yep.
it's spring. Let's look at a little blue sunshine today. And so I think the second thing that we wanted to do was we wanted to showcase not a resource, not a process, but a feature of Rejuvi.
Correct.
So once you start to understand how to push off differently in that 12 o'clock box, think about a leadership analytics flywheel completely differently, then a feature now that will be super helpful to you inside of the Rejuvi platform is this feature called leader population, right? So again, imagine that I'm just re-logging into my instance of the Rejuvi platform. I'm going into this feature, and I can be in Rejuvi team, I can be in Rejuvi sales, I can be in Rejuvi service. It doesn't matter, but I'll stay in Rejuvi team. I can click on leader population, and you're going to get 3 functions now that are available to you to start to help you to think about the leadership capacity that exists inside of your organization at a team level. And so there are 3 broad functions that exist. One is called the leader population upload. And I won't go into it for speed today, but think of
Right.
that as the place where you're going to go to upload your entire team leader population, your supervisors, your operational line leads. And these other 2 pieces are super connected to the working board that we just talked through.
Mhm.
This is where you're going to go to start to understand how much do we have
Right.
at the
Right.
12 o'clock box,
Right.
right? So
At
you're
any
going to
given point, at any given point. Yep.
at any given point. So if I'm trying to understand, if I got super interested in that little story that we just told about build your leadership capacity this way, from your IQ to your EQ to your AQ to build leader strength or leader insight, right? And then those 4 building blocks on the outside, from strategic intent through business unit intelligence to midterm targeting to short-term implementation. And you said, oh, this makes so much sense. Now, how do I understand how much I have? You can go here to the leader insight summary. And I'm just going to go into one of the functions that's available. And for example, go into a capability heat map. And you're going to understand, lo and behold, there you go, how much see, know, and do capability exists inside of your organization. And you can
Right.
just start to take a look at this. And it's interesting enough that at BlackRock Steel, I mean, what can you just tell from this heat map, Vid? I mean, you don't even, look at
Yeah,
this. This is
it's
this is
it's
this is
yeah.
super interesting.
Yeah, it is. And basically what this would say is that for the entire organization of BlackRock Steel and all the leaders at this point in time, they have a super developed do construct, right? All the greens appear over there, and then they have work to do pretty much equally in the see and no constructs in terms of,
Mhm.
upping their game or moving those from yellows and reds to greens. And the idea is that overall, it becomes a benchmark of where we are today. And
Mhm.
remember, we were talking about surgically, you can tie this to business impact. Well, we
Yes,
know that if this team has a overdeveloped do construct, we know exactly what metrics that drives for the business, both top line and
yes,
bottom line, right? We
yes,
know that this means that, attrition or retention of high performing talent might necessarily not be an issue,
yes,
but this organization might be struggling with above average or competitive beating innovation practices.
yes.
So there's things like that that we can literally get into with very precise, like keep using the term surgical conversations. But yeah, and again,
And we're
it's
gonna, yeah, and I know you get super excited about this too, but all of those, how do you get super surgical? How do you start to have the data that sits behind this overall summary report? We're going to keep unpacking all of that surgicalness. We're
yep,
going to keep doing surgery kind of over the course of, the
yeah,
next 4 sessions inside of this mix called, measure the impact of your leadership movement. But what I want to point out to people really quickly is that just like pushing off with power on that leadership analytics flywheel, that business model called, you got to start someplace different with modern leadership. And there's a leader excellence component that's made up of see, know, and do capability, right? But that's only half of it,
right,
right? And so the other piece is, wait a minute, I need to understand what my capacity looks like on the org intelligence side as well. I need to understand what my gap to ceiling is on my ability to, get the business moving, on our ability to move towards business excellence, which again is these 4 constructs of strategic intent, business unit intelligence, midterm targeting, and short-term implementation. You need to have answers to that. And you take a look at this, and like you can just, it starts to tell a
yeah,
very interesting story about what's going on inside of this organization from
yeah.
a business excellence perspective.
Yeah, this organization again is extremely good at at determining how to ensure success. They're very good at determining can everybody in the organization move along on the path to delivering that success. But the way they have work to do is in this, like we were talking about, in the intelligence construct, right? So and that again leads to this mindsets around saying, okay, the body of work or the lifting that this organization's leadership
Yeah.
collectively needs to do is build more muscle, if you want to use that term,
Mhm.
what is the organization's role, or what's the what is their role in the success, and more importantly, what's happening in the business and external to the business.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
what that means is, at very high level, what that means, like I was saying, is we could point to probably innovation or above average innovation or excellent innovation being an opportunity within this
Mhm.
organization, right? And once again, we can get into the specifics of exactly how we know that. But again, very quick, very visual, and completely tied to what the intended business outcome is.
Mhm. That's exactly right. And so let me put this back together for people. And that is, if you want to start thinking about control, and you want to start thinking about a really upstream answer to the question called, what are we going to do about the stuff that our people analytics are informing? You know, you're gonna want leadership analytics, right? You're going to want a leadership analytics flywheel, and it's going to need to inform real-time answers to how much leadership capability, how much leadership capacity do we actually have,
Mhm.
right? Number one. And number two, it is going to, and you need a platform to do that. And number two, it cannot inform capacity based on yesterday's view of leadership excellence,
Right.
because today's view of leadership excellence has more to do with paying, being respectful of growth at the human level and the business level. And it means you've got to move to a more complex model like this.
That's right.
So, what I think is just it's a little bit comical, Vid. We pivoted a couple of weeks ago in our, let's see, our seventh quarter
Mhm.
of Rejuvi 45 sessions, where we were just kind of trying to do a little bit of an opening statement, and then getting right into the platform and doing, rock, paper, scissors, feature process, a resource.